Welcome back, Vienna users. In today's session, we are going to cover the organization. How to create the organization is first and the initial steps after the tenant generation. In our last video, we have gone through how to create the tenant. Under the tenant, you would be able to by default see the organization, the information we have entered while creating the tenant. Now the question is how we can set up the organization into the Vienna Advantage ERP. Now we have all the login into the last time we created the tenant called ABC admin. Now we will log in into the ABC tenant and thereafter will generate the organizations, as there are many organizations that can be a legal entity and a non-legal entity. So before we'll move on to the system, let's go through a little definition about the organization. So in our today's session, we are going to see what are basically the organization. So there are two kind of organization that you can create into the Vienna Advantage. One is basically the legal entities, while the others are the non-legal entities. A legal entity is a distinct and a recognized organization in the eye of the law, or you can say they have the responsibility to pay the taxes to the government based on their revenue generation. And they have the ability to enter into the contracts, owns the property, and sue or be sued in a court of law. Those are basically known as legal entities. While the non-legal entities refers to an entity that doesn't have the legal recognition and is not considered a distinct entity under the law. So enough chit chat, let's move on to the system and we'll generate the legal entities and the non-legal entities at the Vienna Advantage ERP system. You need to log in into the system. So I have there and I have already entered my credentials. So we are logged in into the system with ABC admin that contains the administrative rights. As a tenant preparation, by default, there are two roles gets generated by the tenant process. The first one is the administrator role. The another one is the user role. Now, using the administrator credentials, we are logged in into the system and thereafter we'll generate the legal and the non-legal entities into the Vienna Advantage ERP. So let's log in. You can see the landing page. We will discuss in another video about the landing page. Into the landing page, there are many of the components that we need to understand if we want to run the Vienna Advantage ERP. So we'll create another video on this and that would be helpful for all the Vienna users. Now, we need to search the organization window. So here I do have the organization window. Into the organization window, you would be able to see a default legal entity which got generated as a result of the tenant process. So you would be able to see that organization. Now we'll need to move on into the organization info tab, and at the level of the organization info tab, we just need to enter the entire address of the organization. We need to select the default warehouse for the organization. Thereafter, you need to select the supervisor of the organization. For these supervisors, the warehouse, so these are again the master windows into the system. So those needs to be prepared first and thereafter you will be able to link all these. So if there is any registration number of the organization, for legal entities there would be, you need to enter the registration number. So let's say I will enter ABC, that is just a random number I'm entering, but you just need to enter your text number ID. Okay. Then the organization type, whether it is a store, it is a cost center, it is a division, or it is a legal entity, you would be able to zoom and able to create the organization type. So if I will say whether it is a legal entity, so I will say legal entity can be one of my organization type. So come here, click onto the refresh icon and you would be able to see your legal entity. So it is a legal entity for me. There is no parent organization for this. Then the warehouse, if you want to rename it the warehouse, you would be able to do so. So come here and I will say ABC HQ warehouse. So I would be able to make the changes. So this warehouse also gets generated as a result of the tenant process. Okay. And thereafter under this look warehouse, you need to prepare some locators. So later on we'll update this, and into the another video we'll create some warehouses, we'll create some locators as well. For now we'll focus on to the organization creation. Okay, so now if you have any mailing address, you would be able to enter your mailing address. There might be a possibility the mailing address and the address remains same. In case these remain same, so better it would be recommended to enter both the addresses, because there are certain print formats where these addresses would be utilized. Do not leave it. Enter the DUNS number, that generally Dun Street number, and would be utilized basically into the region of the America. If you do not have, keep it empty, as this is one of the mandatory field. So I have entered, by default the system entered the question mark. You might enter something else. You might enter something else like dot or maybe a space. That would be sufficient enough. Now the text ID here, you can see the first is the registration number, the another one is the text ID. You need to enter your text ID number here. If you do not have the text ID or the registration number and the text ID is same, then it is recommended to enter the same number here. As I have already mentioned that there are going to be print formats or the reports where we are using all this stuff. Okay. Now the supervisor of this, if there is any supervisor for this organization, since the supervisor is mandatory, because while executing the workflow, the supervisor will be used. There is a setup into the workflow, and those workflow sends the notification to the supervisor. Now if this organization has a certain set of accounting rules that you want to specifically execute, then you will select the accounting book. Or if this has a different set of financial year or the fiscal year, then you need to select that fiscal year. There might be a possibility you have a generic fiscal year and the generic accounting book. In such a case, it is recommended not to link the accounting book and the calendar, since it is common for all. In case if your organizations are into the various region of the world, let's say one of the organization is into the US region, while the other organization into the Asia region, that is the India. In such a case, the fiscal year is going to be in India 1st of April till 31st of March, while in US it can vary. It can be from 1st of January to 31st of December, or it might be from 1st of July till 30th of July. So that is basically the differences. In such a cases, it would be recommended to keep the accounting book different. You keep your fiscal year different. So you just need to enter all these details here in such cases. Otherwise, there is no need. Okay, thereafter you can enter your phone number, you can enter your fax, you can enter your email address, you can enter your tax rules. There is a certain different set of tax rules structuring into the Vienna Advantage, where when you create a sales order or a purchase order or an invoice, the system picks up the taxes based on to the combinations defined within the system. So it is recommended, if you want to apply those rules, however you would be able to select the rule at the level of the transaction. If you would be able to do so, then it would be better to select the tax rate while creating the transaction. If you want that it would be easier for the users, then there is a certain tax rule settings needs to be made into the system, and once these settings would be there, then you just need to bind this tax rules for a certain organization at this particular place. Upload the logo of your organization, enter a certain description that you want to print or you wish to print into the print formats, then enter certain description about the organization. So in such a way, you would be able to define. You cannot enter n number of addresses or the organization info at this particular level, since my new button is disabled. Thereafter, there is a translations, that is for the language translation. The organization assignment would be there. So right now all these are not functional. Only the thing that is functional is basically the organization translations, since it is required at the time of language. So once it is saved, your organization, the legal entity is created. Similarly, if you want to create a non-legal entity, then you just need to open the organization, unit. There is a window called organization unit, and these organization unit are basically the cost centers and the work centers. If you want to create your sales department as your profit centers, then I would be able to enter, let's say, sales profit center or whatever the name would be there. So I would be able to write it up here. You can enter the code here into the search key. Okay, now this will ask you under which legal entity it belongs to. So I do have a single legal entity, so I can select the legal entity as ABCHQ. Thereafter, you need to mark whether it is a cost center or a profit center. So it's a profit center for me. So let's save this record, and thereafter we just need to enter the organization unit details. So here at the level of the organization unit details, I would be able to enter it out. Right now, the new record is disabled because we just updated the default organization addresses or the info. So what we need to do, we just need to log out. We need to log in. So let's say cashier set, close, and reopen the organization unit. Now you can move on to the organization unit, and you just need to enter your address. So you would be able to enter your address. So I would say office number 111, New York is the New York. So I will say this as address. There is a supervisor for the sales department, so you can place the supervisor, the organization, the email, and the other details can be entered at this particular organization unit. So once it is done, save the record, and in such a way I can create a number of cost centers and number of profit centers which later can be used while generating the transactions. So that is how we can create the legal and the non-legal entities. Apart from that, there is one more thing is there, that is at the level of the organization, you would be able to create the non-legal entities at this particular place. So if you want to create a non-legal entity, you need not to mark this legal entity. However, you just need to enter the details of the non-legal entity, select your legal organization. Now what's basically the difference between both organization unit and at the level of the organization when you are preparing a non-legal entity at the organization level? When you prepare a non-legal entity at the level of the organization, you need to do all the transactions in this particular organization, and later on there is an impact onto the reporting that you need to pull the report in a different manner. While onto the organization unit, you need to select the organization unit at the level of the transaction. All your transaction would be always processed in the legal entities. So that is what the difference is. And this is the feasibility and the beauty of the system, where you would be able to define in a different way the non-legal entities. That is the legal entities and the non-legal entities preparation into the Vienna Advantage, and also that known as organization into the Vienna Advantage ERP. I hope you guys learned how to create organization into the Vienna Advantage ERP. For now, bye-bye, and we'll see you into the next video. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.